Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Valerian and the city of... I forgot, where are my signs? The city of 1,000 planets. Stick around and find out. Ba 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 da 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 da. Ba 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 da da ba 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 bum bum bum. All right. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. The synopsis, or a synopsis from IMDb, reads, Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets is the new adventure film from Luc Besson? Is that how you say his name? I'm not sure. The director of The Professional, The Fifth Element, and Lucy, based on the comic book series which inspired a generation of artists, writers, and filmmakers. In the 28th century, Valerian, Dane DeHaan, maybe is how you pronounce that, and Laureline, played by Cara Delevingne, are a team of special operatives charged with maintaining order throughout the human territories. Under assignment from the Minister of Defense, the two embark on a mission to the astonishing city of Alpha, an ever-expanding metropolis where species from all over the universe have converged over centuries to share knowledge, intelligence, and cultures with each other. There is a mystery at the center of Alpha, a dark force which threatens the peaceful existence of the city of 1,000 planets, and Valerian and Laureline must race to identify the marauding menace and safeguard not just Alpha, but the future of the universe. I wanted to draw your attention to that phrase, Valerian and Laureline must race. Because out of all that description, movie's 2 hours and 17 minutes long. 17 minutes covers probably... The other 2 hours covers Valerian and Laureline must race. Lots of... So with that in mind, let's actually talk about the story, the script, the pacing, the tone, that kind of stuff. It reminds me very much of... like The Fifth Element, which the same director was, I think, both wrote the screenplay for, as he did for this one, and directed. And it reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, and Jupiter Ascending, if you saw that. There's a... Maybe more so than those movies, though. In this one, I felt like there was a little story and just lots of running, jumping, quips, and CG, computer stuff all over the place, with kind of a light adventure tone that never felt the least bit intense to me. Lots of crazy sci-fi concepts that aren't explained, which was kind of cool, both in terms of the script, you know, in terms of like the gadgets they pull out and stuff, and then also just visually, there's stuff in passing that you'll see, and that if you wanted to look at, you could like wonder, well, what's the purpose of this little part of the design, or what? I mean, there's just so much going on. It's this richly detailed world that feels very much visually like a comic book, and appropriate because this is based on a comic book. I don't know if it visually matches up with that style or not. I'll get to the visual design in a second, though. But anyway, lots of crazy sci-fi concepts that aren't explained. There are also concepts that just out and out didn't make sense to me. I was like, okay, I'd like an explanation for that. You know, like modern artifacts and expressions that should be long gone. Like there's a school bus that's like fitted with like hovering things that make it fly around, like a little yellow school bus, and I'm like, what is this doing on the other side of the universe? Why is this even exist anymore? This doesn't make any sense. It didn't look like it was that old, and this takes place many hundreds of years in the future. And let's see here, there was also the expression used of like, you know, one character was like defending their piloting, but calling themselves a driver. You know, it's like, or you know, it's like I'm a great driver. You know, I'm a great driver. So I'm like, oh, okay, I know you're a great driver, whatever. You know, and I'm like, driver, you guys are like, you know, like not even in orbit around a planet. You are totally in deep space. Why are we saying driver right now? So just kind of like very loosey-goosey in terms of the logic of the story and the little details and stuff like that. I think it's all just about, let's take a bunch of crazy concepts and visual ideas, throw them all together, and that'll be interesting. We don't need to worry about it all being logical and making sense, you know. So there's just crazy stuff happening that the heroes have to get through using their crazy gadgets that they have on hand, you know. And in that regard, there didn't seem to be enough, for me anyway, limits defined for like what the characters could do and couldn't do, what the bad guys could do and couldn't do. It felt a little bit like Inspector Gadget, you know, if you remember that, you know, Nickelodeon show from many, many years ago, where like whatever he needed kind of at the time, he'd just go, gadget thingamajigger, blah, and then it comes out of his, his appendix or whatever. Where's your appendix? Your appendix is back here, I think, somewhere, and it's not up here. These are my flabby abs. So anyway, yeah, it felt a little bit like that. Okay, so let's talk about the cast very briefly. Dane DeHaan, I really enjoy watching this actor. I really love him most from Chronicle. I enjoyed him in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm trying to think if I've seen him in anything else, but I like him when he plays these kind of dark, haunted characters or these kind of odd characters. But in this movie, it was unusual casting because the character he's playing is supposed to be kind of like this bad boy maverick, like a Bruce Willis type character. And I'll come back to Bruce Willis in my very closing thoughts. But it just seemed like odd casting for what the character I think was supposed to be based on the script. And then I thought that Cara Delevingne, I thought she did fine. I didn't feel like she was given much to do. I don't really know what she's capable of as an actress. I haven't seen her in very much. She was the sorceress in Suicide Squad, but I haven't seen her, I don't think, in anything else. So I didn't feel like this. I felt like she had more interesting emotions and things to do in Suicide Squad, certainly, than she did in this movie. She was more or less just kind of a tough chick who was also kind of a trophy that was being pursued by Valerian, So there wasn't a lot there. I wish there was more substance to that she would have had to work with, but I thought she did fine for what she was asked to do. As far as stunts and visuals go, holy green screen. There's lots of CG all over the place, with a good amount of practical props thrown in. Maybe, I'm trying to remember if there were any like incidental creatures that were not CG. I think almost all of them were CG or CG enhanced, especially when it comes to like facial movements. I'm just cursed with an eye for CG that's like, oh, that is an animated face. I don't know if necessarily the whole body is, but that face is freaking out of a computer, but it's solid CG, but the animation is still a giveaway for me, and some of the designs were almost cartoony. Some of the alien designs are almost cartoony. So even when you add lots of detailed textures to what is essentially, to my taste, still looks like feeling like a cartoony design, it doesn't help at all to kind of place it in a real space with the actors. Visually, this whole movie is just super, super busy. There's lots to look at, lots to wonder about. The style reminds me of classic science fiction. I would compare it actually to movies like the ones I mentioned, Fifth Element, Jupiter Ascending, Guardians of the Galaxy to some degree, but those aren't quite as weird as, say, Fifth Element. But I would also compare it to the art here. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but this is the second edition of Merchant of Venus, and it's just kind of got a classic. This is like really busy. Like you can almost like I first had to look at this picture for a while to figure out what am I looking at. Okay, so there's this creature here. Okay, what is that? A plant or something, or what is this over here? Like, oh, there's a person there. Holy crap, in the middle of all that weirdness, there's a dude sitting there. It's just very busy and unusual looking, but yet still has a little bit of a classic vibe, maybe a 1960s, I want to say, kind of visual look to it, or to at least parts of it. So anyway, the Merchant of Venus board game cover and then Fifth Element would be the way I would describe kind of the visuals. It's a bit too colorful and busy to feel real to me, to kind of ground it, but I don't think that's the tone they're going for hardly at all in this movie. So it just feeds into what I think is the light tone that they're going for. Okay, so I always try to ask myself, is there anything of worthwhile spiritual, philosophical, or moral significance, anything along those lines that might, come to mind that as a result of, watching this movie or whatever. Well, because so much of it felt very substanceless to me, in terms of like the depth of character, which for me was not there at all. It's hard for me to kind of connect to any potential messaging that might be in there when I'm really disinterested in the story. So it's hard for me to say if anything would jump out to anybody, but I still try to look. And so as I was kind of looking and thinking, I felt like the movie wanted to uphold some values, but didn't really understand those values, or didn't really understand maybe how to communicate those values, if I'm a little bit more generous. The biggest of those values that stood out to me was love. Valerian, the main male hero guy, says he wants to commit to to Laura Lean, to a serious, committed relationship with Laura Lean. He even wants to marry her. He makes that very clear. Throughout the movie, this is kind of like a little running plot thread they come back to. But Laura Lean doesn't believe that he really loves her or that he will love her more than past trophy girlfriends that as soon as he kind of gets to that point in the relationship with, then he's gone, and they're just a conquest of the past. She wants him to trust her, which he repeatedly fails to do throughout the movie, taking on all kinds of things himself instead of trusting her to do it, and he criticizes her quote-unquote driving and stuff like that. Now, I will say it's true that a relationship without trust doesn't work well, but you can trust a business partner, I think, in all the ways that Laura Lean was asking to be trusted herself, and not love your business partner like you should love a spouse, or like I think Laura Lean wants to be loved. So, is that the best way? Is that the key element that should define love for us? God demonstrated love for us in a different way. Romans 5:8 in the ESV reads, God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And I put emphasis on there because, Valerian is willing to die for Laura Lean. He even says so, and yet that's not enough for her. She says, I'm not asking you to die for me. I'm asking you to trust me, So, is her standard of love higher than God's? No. What we really want when we ask to be trusted by someone that we love, what I think Laura Lean would really want if she were a real person, and this plot thread was fleshed out a bit, is to be valued enough that those who love us prioritize us over their own pleasure or comfort. They trust us enough to be maybe vulnerable with us, or they trust us enough to set aside their need to control the situation and hand over some things to us instead, So I think that's more of what it comes down to and that's essentially what the Greek word means for love in Romans 5:8 and elsewhere in the New Testament. It's this core idea of love that prioritizes concern for others, the welfare of others, over our own pleasure. That's the core idea of love that this movie doesn't quite grab onto, and instead favors a representation of love that feels very shallow to me in this movie, very much like your typical CW nighttime drama or TV show, where it's love that's about flirting, just clever, very shallow flirting and physical attraction and stuff. That really was, I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, well, why would she love you, Valerian? I don't see any substance to who you are, or why do you guys even have any kind of, what is this? What makes this a relationship other than just flirting and kind of sexual tension and attraction and whatever? Now, on that topic of just kind of sexuality and stuff like that, Valerian, as a character, is treated to a 2 to 3 minute, I would guesstimate, dance by a stripper who keeps covered just enough to help the movie retain its PG-13 rating. Moments after, he learns that she's been victimized by her manager or pimp. It's unclear what that relationship is. And she's effectively his slave, this stripper. We're clearly meant to feel compassion for her because of her innate worth as a person. So why then, I have to ask, spend 2+ minutes of the movie treating this character and the actress playing her like a sex object for real-life audience members? And you might say, well, they're just portraying what she was doing. Nah, you could shoot that whole scene of her dancing for him much shorter, from the shoulders up even, and convey the same message. There's all kinds of creative ways you can convey sexual things happening in movies without actually engaging the viewer in witnessing that. They can be fully aware of what's supposed to be going on without actually treating a woman that's cast in a movie or a TV show as a sex object for those who are buying tickets or who are tuning in to watch. So instead, it felt like this, at the end, this nonsensical message the movie wanted to put out there that used female objectification to speak out against female objectification. Really kind of an unusual moment there. And then finally, this one is probably the most subtle of the three. The peaceful, nature-loving aliens that the heroes are trying to help say that enough time has passed that they no longer feel anger toward those responsible for destroying their planet. And they urge those same people who were responsible for destroying their planet to make peace with their past. But here's the thing. Time can just as easily create bitterness as it can forgiveness, as we reflect on how we have been mistreated or wounded. So while promoting forgiveness and inner peace are good things, and I tip my hat to the movie for wanting to do that, I also don't feel like there's anything helpful offered here that I could see that can actually lead a viewer in the direction of having peace with wrongs that they've done in the past, or forgiving those who have wronged them and letting go of their anger. I don't see any tools that they're presenting. They're saying those things are good to do. They're not saying how we can do that, And I think it would be cool if, when you're going to bring up those ideas in a movie, you suggest some kind of a philosophical path to head down that can actually help make that a reality. All right, well, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were to go back in time, I'd talk to myself and I'd say, Peter, hey, skip it. I know you were kind of thinking that maybe there'll be some substance to this. It's got lots of cool spectacle, which you like, but it's not going to mean anything to you if it doesn't have some groundedness and characters that you can care about, and this movie is not going to have that for you. So just go ahead and skip this one. It could really use a Bruce Willis. In fact, why don't you just watch Fifth Element again, where Bruce Willis is present to kind of ground the craziness. He's the one guy in that movie that is like, okay, settle down. Let's just all calm down for a minute here. This movie really could have used that kind of grounding character or anything to kind of ground it a little bit. Or hey, go watch Farscape. Go watch Farscape again, the greatest television show that's ever been made. It's got crazy aliens and crazy concepts every episode. It's got silliness and humor aplenty, but it also has characters and stories that you can really care about. So Farscape is another great option for you. All right, this one's rated PG-13 for sci-fi violence and action, suggestive material, and brief language. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please consider supporting this channel by becoming a Spirit Blade Insider, which grants you exclusive monthly behind-the-scenes content of my adventures with Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central and keeping all the plates spinning and stuff. I have some plans coming up for this channel, but resources are a bit thin right now, so I'd be grateful for either your monthly support or just a one-time gift. For more info, you can visit our About page at spiritblade.com. And then if you want, you can like, share, and subscribe if you like this video and want to share it and want more videos like it. That does help. Let's see here. And then, visit spiritblade.com for our free weekly podcast and our audio dramas. That's another way to support this channel, is to buy one of our audio dramas over there at spiritblade.com. Finally, there's a ton more content and community over at christiangeekcentral.com. I hope you'll join us there soon as we continue to geek out. You don't see me looking for the button, do you? And seek the truth.